Are you guys voting in the Democratic primaries?
Yeah, I am.
Yes, I caucused in Iowa.
Yeah, I'm going to be voting.
So are you voting in the Democratic primaries?
I am.
Yes, I already voted. I voted absentee in New Hampshire, where I'm from.
Yes.
Yes.
I am, yes.
Me too.
Currently, I don't know if I will. So for me, the issue, like when you asked who I, like if I was planning on voting in the Democratic primary, the issue is that I kind of suffer from like this issue of like, oh, I want to be perfectly informed of, everyone's policies and things like that. And for me, I haven't done that research yet, which is why right now I'm pretty undecided when it comes to voting, because I want to have an informed vote. And I think that's my responsibility as a citizen to do that.
Yeah, mostly the same. I would like to be more informed, but when it probably comes down to like the actual, big proper election, I think I lean a bit more liberal. So,
Yes.
Yes.
I have already voted.
I will be.
I am voting in the Democratic primaries.
Are you guys voting in the Democratic primaries?
No.
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 And you guys mind sharing why you are not voting?
I registered in high school. I'm still undecided who I'm voting for at the moment. It's kind of didn't change my registration or thought about doing it.
Yeah, I'm registered Republican.
I'm registered independent, and I feel like both parties don't share a lot of my moderate views, so I'm not voting either primary.
I am, yes.
I'm from Colorado, so I'm going to be voting from there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm planning on it.
Unfortunately, I'm not voting in the Democratic primary. My state, I'm from Nevada, and Nevada's a caucus, and you can't send in an absentee caucus, which is actually really unfortunate. But I like voting in my general election in Nevada, so I want to make sure I keep my registration in Nevada.
What state are you voting in?
I'm actually voting in North Carolina.
Texas.
North Carolina.
South Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeehaw.
I'd be voting in Wisconsin since I'm from there.
And I'd be voting in North Carolina because I'm also from there.
Pennsylvania.
North Carolina.
I'm from California, but I changed my registration to vote in North Carolina.
In Texas. North Carolina, actually.
I'm voting in North Carolina.
I'm voting in Kentucky. It's important to vote because everyone has a voice, and this is the way we have to exercise our democratic power and to show, what we want and who we want to be held accountable, especially in this election. There's a lot on the line and a lot at stake.
Yeah, definitely agree. I also didn't want to miss my first caucus this year, so that was some extra added incentive to go back home and vote.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that everybody has their own issues that they really care about. And I definitely want the opportunity to express mine in the election. So I will definitely be voting.
I think it's really important to have at least your voice heard in the political sphere, even though a lot of people think it's not worth much or like a drop in the bucket. But I think it's important to, if you have the right to have your voice heard, because other people don't around the world.
I guess for me, it was just one of those things that my parents talked about a lot. It was like sort of a civic duty thing, like you should go out and you should vote, and it's important to do that. So.
Yeah, I'm exactly in the same vein. I think it's really important to vote, especially in big elections like this, but also in small elections like county elections and things like that. I think it's important.
I think most importantly, it's just important to actually exercise the right to vote. It's kind of a privilege that being born and raised in America, we all have, or as a United States citizen. So the fact that people don't exercise that privilege is strange to me.
I think it's important for anybody to vote just because you're able to voice your opinions, and it's just a part of your general civic duty for the democracy in this great country. So one of the only times you get to, tell the party, like the DNC, especially in the primaries, what the people's will is, where things are shifting, in terms of the base. You can vote for a centrist, you can vote for a progressive. It's a good way to kind of get whatever movement within the party you want to get within.
It's important to me to vote because I think it's a right and a privilege, and I feel like we cannot take that for granted, especially in a time as polarized as this one. I'm also from California, so for me it's really exciting to vote in a swing state and feel like my vote matters a lot more.
I think it's just our civic duty to vote, and I don't know, if you feel strongly about a candidate, then
I think that's the best way to try to push them forward.
People should vote because I think even from like a local level, like having a say in what goes on in your local elections are even more important, maybe from a national perspective even. I know in Las Vegas we have a lot of referendums in our ballots every election cycle, so just having a say in like some of the referendums that actually change a lot of things that go on in our state is pretty important. And when you even look at the numbers, it's like even the incremental margin makes a difference in some of my, at least in my district in Las Vegas.
I voted for Bernie Sanders.
I caucused for Elizabeth Warren.
I will also be voting for Elizabeth Warren.
And can you share why you are voting for your prospective candidates?
For sure. I really like Bernie's takes, like a lot of his progressive stances, which I think are refreshing, especially in this political climate. And just the fact that he's not really afraid to like call out U.S. institutions on like what they've done in the past to like overthrow other governments, and just like his views on like just like the socialist institutions that are going to be implemented. But I also think that Elizabeth Warren would make an amazing candidate or make an amazing president, and so I'm like really supportive of her as well. So I don't think it's like necessarily one or the other thing, but I also think that he has the ability to beat Trump because he appeals a lot to working class voters, which none of the other candidates really do too.
Yeah, I agree. I really love Elizabeth Warren because, I really want a woman in the White House this year. That's partly why I worked for Kamala Harris over the summer. And I also just love her energy, and I love her ability to connect with her supporters and people who show up to her rallies and events. I feel like she makes people feel seen and valued, and she works so hard. She is nonstop, and I'm so in awe of that, and that's who I want to become one day. So
yeah, I think Maya said pretty much everything that I would say about Elizabeth Warren. I mean, selfishly, I really want to see a woman in the White House. I also think that she's very electable, and I just think she's extremely intelligent, and I think that really comes through when she takes the debate stage and at her rallies and everything. So I will be voting for Elizabeth Warren.
And do you mind sharing who you're voting for?
Yes, I'm voting for Bernie. I voted for Bernie Sanders.
And why are you voting for Bernie?
He's the only guy who could probably beat Trump. That's the biggest thing. And also, he's the only guy who actually is starting from a point of. You can't start from a point of compromise. So he's starting with actual positions, and if he compromises down those positions, then okay. But if you start from a point of compromise like Joe Biden or other candidates, you won't get anything done.
I voted for Bernie Sanders.
And why are you voting for Bernie?
I believe very heavily in his policies, especially with Medicare for all. But what sets him apart from all the other candidates for me is his foreign policy, and especially his Middle Eastern foreign policy. And I think that one of the biggest jobs of the president that we often ignore because we put a lot of focus on domestic policy, which is really important, is that they ultimately have like the most power with foreign policy in their role, like in the Situation Room and like making decisions. And the U.S. has had like such a negative impact, especially on the Middle East in like recent years, but all over in like our foreign policy. And to have a candidate who like comes out and talks about Palestine and comes out and talks about like, I don't know, the CIA and just like all the wrongdoings that America has done in the past is like very, very powerful. And it's something that I don't think we've seen in like a political election of this scale ever.
I voted for Pete Buttigieg because I think he's a moderate candidate who stands a good chance against beating Trump in the general election.
Bernie.
I have no idea because I've been researching which Democratic candidate has the highest chance of beating Trump, and there are no clear answers, so I don't know yet, and I'm stressed.
I have not decided yet. My only criteria is who is most likely to beat Trump. In any other election, I would be looking more at like policy stuff and their platforms, but there's a difference between a candidate, or rather a president whose policies I disagree with, and someone who's actually a threat to democracy.
Do you mind sharing who you're voting for?
Yeah, I voted for Bernie.
And why are you voting for Bernie?
I think partly just because I think of all the candidates, he seems to be the one who cares most about kind of the position as president, and I think his track record for whatever 30 years or whatever it's been has really shown that like he cares about this country and politics.
So I was really indecisive between Elizabeth and Bernie, and I ended up voting for Elizabeth because I thought her experience as a Harvard law professor and just her actions in Senate kind kind of made me think she'd be more effective in the nitty-gritty details than Bernie would.
I'm voting for Bernie Sanders because I want Tom Perez to resign, and I think the DNC is a bunch of crooks.
I am voting for Joe Biden just because I feel like in our time right now, we need someone who's a little bit more middle ground that people from both parties can both kind of agree on and jump on board with. So in my opinion, I feel like he's just the best candidate in that sense.
I'm not sure yet. I have my absentee ballot, but have not mailed it back yet.
I'm voting for Bernie.
And do you mind sharing why you're voting for Bernie?
I feel very strongly about his policies, particularly like all of his like healthcare policies, increasing the living wage and everything like that. And yeah, I think that's the way America's headed, and that's the way we should be heading, because that's the best way for us to conduct ourselves. It's not really a good reason. Yeah, but yeah. And I really believe in him.
And will you guys still vote for the Democratic nominee even if the person you voted for is not chosen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. It would take a lot for me to vote for Bloomberg, but I would do it. It would just have to, I would have to like be in the right mental state first.
Yeah, I agree on that. There are some where I would just have to plug my nose and do it. But anybody is better than who we have right now.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It depends on the candidate. I think we need somebody that's more centric, though, and if it's somebody that's very left, it would be very divisive for the country. So I'd have to think about it.
I think yes, as long as like the Republican sustains like Trump as their person.
Same.
Yeah.
I would definitely vote for the Democratic nominee, even if Warren isn't chosen.
I'll vote for any Democratic nominee other than Mike Bloomberg.
And will you still vote for the Democratic nominee even if Biden is not chosen?
Yes.
Oh, definitely.